So, yeah, Helmsley, tough place. A lot to do, a lot of politics, juggling lots of things. But I was lucky enough, I suppose. I don't know if it's luck or sometimes it's just about sorting your shit out, really. But to go and spend time at the Westbury in London. And the chef there was a guy called Philip Corrick. And I'm absolutely positive that the big mouth on the larder section was Ainsley Harriott. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. I'm digging around trying to find out if it was Ainsley, but I'm sure Philip Corrick had Ainsley Harriott when he was, unimportant and just a chef on in the Westbury. So, and then I went to work for Martin Davis at Brown's, and then Martin and Philip both came up and did a couple of gourmet dinners. Where we kind of did half the menu each, which was really good. And Martin had a very distinct style of Browns. And so by working with these individuals, by picking their brains, by understanding what made them successful, made you begin to understand the separate 6 different people, for example, and 6 different styles of mentality and thinking. And then I went to work at 90 Park Lane and the Grosvenor House. So 90 Park Lane was the restaurant that had a 1-star Michelin, and Grosvenor House did the events and the functions. So I spent some time working with a guy called Edward Harry, who ran Grosvenor House, and then Vaughan Archer working in 90 Park Lane. And Vaughan had just come back from the south of France, and he had a very distinct style of food. And then not long after that, I spent some time working with an Englishman who had a great following called Michael Quinn, who was the first English head chef of the Ritz, and he was in a place called Ettington Park in Stratford. I'll never forget, a customer complained and said, "I don't believe this lobster's fresh." So Michael and his lovely kind of style wandered out the kitchen, Underneath his apron, he had this kind of moving object, and when he got nearer the table, he then plonked this live lobster in the middle of the table. But unlike, some of the other most gregarious, tough-arsed, aggressive chefs, he had a laugh and joke with the customer. And then, when he was making piping bags to put chocolate in to do the desserts, he'd put some petit fours in and rush in the restaurant and give it to the kids. So Michael was a lovely, lovely guy and a Yorkshireman. He was wonderful. And then Peter Chandler from Paris House, who had a 1-star Michelin, Woburn Abbey. He was a wonderful individual. And then somebody who became very special to me was Nico Ladenis. And he'd opened Chez Nico, Shinfield. And I went and spent some time working down there. And he was an absolute... I just loved his whole style and his whole approach of how he had this, his whole thing about tarragon and tomatoes and Madeira, and his whole organisation in the kitchen. He had an extra door installed so that he didn't have to keep having to move out the bloody way for the people that were irritating him. We had Nico's door, which meant he could move in and out the kitchen, without having to wait for the people. And his style of food, I think, was absolutely legendary. So you kind of got Philip Corrick, and you then got the whole Martin Davis, and you had the Michael Quinn thing, and you had the Edward Harry, and you had Vaughan Archer, and you had the Nico Ladenis. The whole thing was smashing your brain to think, my God, I've learned so much from all different people. And if I can just... And then I went to work in a 3-star Michelin restaurant in the south of France called Restaurant L'Oasis in a little place called La Napoule, not far from Cannes. And that was just wow. But I'm going to discuss that another day, because that was a very, very special place. So you have your own skill, you have your own ability, you've learned X and Y and Z and A and B and C from before. You then get these people thrust upon you. And if you've got the right attitude to not go and look at other people's food and say, that's shit, or I can do better, but shut it and use these 2 things and your senses to understand how other people have become successful, then hopefully you may become further successful. And let's be honest, what does success mean? It may be happiness. It may be just doing a simple job every day. It may not. But this opportunity for me was very special. But I had to have these two things wired in and do something with that.